The moment I put these glasses on my face, one question hits me harder than the frame sitting on my nose. Can smart glasses really replace pulling out your phone, or are we still pretending the future is here when it's not? Because right now, I'm wearing the RayNeo X2, glasses that don't just connect to a phone, but actually work on their own, with displays built into the lenses. And before we go any further, let me be clear about one thing. I'm not here to hype you up with sci-fi dreams. Everything I'm about to tell you is based on what these glasses actually do today. In the real world, when you walk outside, talk to people, and live your normal life. But here's the twist. The more time I spend with them, the more I realize the real story isn't obvious at first glance. And if you're wondering whether these can really stand next to Meta Ray-Ban glasses, stay with me, because the answer slowly reveals itself in ways I didn't expect. Let's start with the first 10 seconds, because that's when most people decide whether something feels magical or just awkward. I put the RayNeo X2 on, and instead of looking at a dark screen or waiting for a phone to wake up, information appears right in front of my eyes. Not blocking my vision, not screaming for attention, just floating there quietly, like someone whispering. Notes only I can see. If you've never experienced waveguide displays before, think of it like subtitles for real life, but only when you need them. And this is important. These displays are real micro-LED displays built into the glasses. Not phone reflections, not mirrors, not projection tricks. They are always there when the system is on, and that immediately separates RayNeo X2 from glasses that only act as cameras or audio accessories. But comfort decides everything, doesn't it? You can pack all the tech in the world into a device, but if it hurts after 20 minutes, it's game over. So I wear them, I sit, I stand, I walk, I tilt my head, I forget I'm wearing them. And then I remember again when the weight reminds me these aren't regular sunglasses. They are heavier than normal glasses, and there's no hiding that. But here's what surprised me. The weight is balanced. It doesn't drag the front of my face down, and it doesn't feel like a brick sitting on my nose. After a while, your brain adapts, especially indoors. Outdoors, with movement, you notice them more. Not painfully. Just enough to remind you that you're wearing technology, not fashion-first eyewear dot. And that brings us to design, which is where the comparison with Meta Ray-Ban quietly begins. RayNeo X2 does not try to look like luxury sunglasses. It looks like smart glasses. Slightly thicker frames, visible purpose. If Meta Ray-Ban is trying to disappear into everyday fashion, RayNeo X2 is saying, yes, I'm tech, let's talk about what I do. And for some people, that honesty is refreshing. Others might feel self-conscious wearing them in public, especially the first few times. I remember walking into a cafe and wondering, do people think I'm recording them? That feeling matters, and we'll come back to it when we talk about the camera, because that's where real-world trust gets tested. Now here's where things start getting interesting. These glasses are not accessories. They're standalone. That means there's a processor inside them, a real one. The Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2 platform runs the entire experience. No phone needed to display information. No phone needed for navigation. No phone needed for translation overlays. And if you've ever felt the frustration of smart gadgets that collapse the moment Bluetooth disconnects, this independence feels powerful. But wait, does that mean you never need a phone at all? Not exactly. And the way that balance works is one of those details that only becomes clear once you actually live with them. I take them outside. The light hits the lenses. The displays remain visible because they're designed for brightness, but not in an aggressive way. They don't overpower reality. They blend into it. And here's a moment I didn't expect to matter as much as it did. I turn my head quickly. The information stays stable. That's sensor work happening silently. Accelerometer, gyroscope, compass, these aren't buzzwords here. They're the reason the display doesn't feel nauseating. If you've ever tried early AR that made your stomach flip, you know how important this is. But I'm not telling you this just to impress you. I'm telling you because in about a minute, I'm going to explain what happens when you try to use these while actually moving through a city, and that's where the real test begins. Before that, let's talk audio, because audio is where smart glasses live or die for daily use. The RayNeo X2 uses built-in speakers that sit near your ears. They don't block your ears. They don't isolate you from the world. Imagine someone whispering directions to you while you still hear traffic, footsteps, and voices around you. That's the experience. Indoors, the sound is clear enough for voice prompts and simple media. Outdoors, it competes with the environment. You hear it, but it's not booming. And that's actually intentional. This is not meant to replace headphones. It's meant to coexist with real life. Kids understand this instantly. Oh, it's like the glasses are talking to me. Adults appreciate it later when they realize they never felt cut off from the world. Now let me do something simple. I receive a notification, not on a phone screen,
right here
in my
is
view.
incredibly
Just
efficient
text.
for the quarterly review.
No flashy animation. And here's the key detail. It doesn't demand my attention. It waits for my eyes. If you're expecting fireworks, you'll miss the point. The value here is subtle. And subtle tech is harder to appreciate until you go back to a phone and realize how loud screens actually are. But what about control? Because if you're thinking, do I have to wave my hands around like a wizard in public? That question matters more than you think. The RayNeo X2 supports gesture controls and touch inputs. You can interact without exaggerating your movements.
All systems nominal.
Small gestures, natural motions.
Generating schematic.
Still,
for
there's a
module
learning
3.
curve. The first time you hesitate. The second time you experiment. By the third time, you stop thinking and just do it. But hold on to that thought, because in crowded places, gestures feel very different, and I'll explain exactly why in a moment. Let's pause here, because we haven't even touched the feature most people are waiting for, the camera. And this is where opinions divide fast. The RayNeo X2 includes a built-in camera for first-person photos and video. No speculation, no hidden modes. You see, you capture. Simple. But before I even press the button, I feel something unexpected. Responsibility. Wearing a camera on your face is different from holding one in your hand. People react differently. You react differently. And that psychological shift is part of the real-world experience that spec sheets never tell you about. I remember lifting my head slightly and realizing this is what I see. That's powerful, but it's also sensitive. The quality is serviceable for documenting moments, not cinematic filmmaking. And that honesty matters because these glasses are not replacing your phone camera. They are replacing the moments you miss because your hands were busy or your phone was away. And that changes how you think about what you record. Now, here's the cliffhanger. When you combine the camera with navigation, translation, and standalone processing, the experience starts to feel less like a gadget and more like a companion. But does it actually help you in daily life, or does it slow you down?
Project Atlas metrics
That answer
are exceeding
depends
targets
entirely
by
on how these
15%.
features interact
The
when you're not
summary is
testing
available on your
them, but
display.
relying on them. And that's exactly where we're going next. Because now that you know how they feel, how they look, and how they talk to you, the real question becomes, what happens when you trust them to guide you through the world? Stay with me, because the next moment completely changed how I judged these glasses.
We are excited.
So now I'm standing outside, letting these glasses make the next move. And this is where the RayNeo X2 starts to feel less like an experiment and more like something you could actually depend on. I activate navigation, and instead of pulling out a phone, tilting it, zooming in, zooming out, the directions appear right in my view. Not arrows screaming at me, not a giant map blocking my vision, just simple guidance layered onto the real world. It feels almost too calm at first. And that's the part that makes you wonder, is this really working? But then I take a few steps, turn a corner, and the information updates smoothly. No lag that pulls me out of the moment. No panic-inducing reroutes. Just quiet guidance. Here's something a lot of people don't realize until they try it themselves. Navigation in glasses changes how you walk. You look up more. You notice buildings, signs, people. A 10-year-old would probably say, it feels like a game telling me where to go. A 60-year-old might say, I don't feel lost, but I also don't feel distracted. Both are right, and that's not a small achievement. But wait, what happens when the environment gets messy? When there's noise, movement, people everywhere? I deliberately walk into a busier street. Cars passing, voices overlapping, and now I'm curious whether this calm experience holds together or falls apart. This is where the sensors quietly do their job again. The compass, the motion tracking. The system knowing which way I'm facing, it all keeps the navigation stable. But here's the honest part, you still need to trust it. If you don't trust it, you'll second guess every step, and then you might as well use your phone. The RayNeo X2 doesn't force trust, it invites it. And that makes a huge difference in how comfortable you feel relying on it. Now imagine this scenario. You're traveling, maybe a country where the language isn't familiar. This is where the RayNeo X2's translation feature steps in, and I need to be very precise here. The glasses provide real-time translation by showing subtitles in your view. Not replacing voices, not dubbing people. Just text, appearing as someone speaks. And the first time you see it, your brain pauses for a second, because it feels like cheating at reality. You're listening to a person, seeing their face, and reading their words at the same time. But it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels functional. I tried in a controlled environment first, because context matters. Clear speech, minimal noise, the subtitles appear. There's a short delay, but it's understandable. Not magic. Not instant. And that's okay, because you're still having a conversation. You're not watching a screen. And suddenly, I realized something important. This isn't about replacing learning a language. It's about reducing anxiety. For someone older, maybe traveling for the first time in years, this could be the difference between speaking up and staying silent. For a kid, it's like a superpower that helps you understand people you couldn't before, but then I push it further. Background noise increases. More people talking. Now the subtitles struggle. Not completely fail, but they become less confident. And this is where honesty matters. The RayNeo X2 doesn't pretend the world is quiet. It works best when conversations are clear. And instead of feeling disappointed, I actually feel relieved. Because overpromising is what kills trust in smart tech. These glasses don't pretend to be perfect. They show you what they can handle and where they need help. Now let's talk about connection. Because even though these glasses are standalone, they don't live in isolation. They connect via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And here's the important detail. Phone connectivity enhances the experience but doesn't define it. Notifications, calls, certain app interactions, they become more convenient when paired. But if the phone is gone, the glasses don't panic. They keep doing what they're built to do. And that alone sets them apart from glasses that act like accessories instead of devices. Calls are another quiet surprise. Audio comes through the speakers near your ears. You speak normally. No microphone boom. No awkward posture. But here's the thing, you're not in a bubble. People around you can hear your voice, and some sound may escape the speakers. This is not private like earbuds. It's subtle, but it's there. And depending on where you are, that matters. Walking outside? Fine. Sitting in a quiet room? You'll be more aware of it. Again, not a flaw, a design choice. One that favors awareness over isolation. And now, we circle back to the camera, but this time not as a feature, but as a behavior changer. I capture a photo while walking. No stopping. No framing with my hands. Just a moment preserved exactly as I saw it. The image quality is what you'd expect from glasses not flagship phone level. Not cinematic, but clear enough to remember. And that's the keyword, remember. These glasses aren't for creators chasing perfection. They're for people who want context. Point of view, memory. But then something interesting happens. I stop recording. I lower my head. And I notice how people look at me. Some are curious. Some don't care. A few look cautious. This is where RayNeo X2 feels very different from Meta Ray-Ban. Ray-Ban frames blend in. RayNeo X2 stands out more. And that social perception is part of the ownership experience. You don't just wear these, you represent them. And you need to be okay with that. Now, let's slow things down. I sit. I wear the glasses without using them.
Yes,
no displays
absolutely.
active.
I appreciate
just
you
frames on my
confirming
face.
that.
They're heavier than normal glasses, yes. After extended wear, you feel it. Pressure builds slightly on the nose. Ears notice the arms. This isn't an all-day forget their experience for everyone. And pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But for sessions, for tasks, for trips, they make sense. They're tools, not fashion statements pretending to be invisible. Battery.
In 50 meters,
Life naturally
veer right
becomes the
towards
silent
building
question
entrance.
hovering over all of this.
The new Meta Ray-Ban
And while I'm not
smart
throwing
glasses
numbers at
integrate
you,
seamlessly
here's
into
what
any clean
matters.
setup,
The glasses
offering a
behave
glimpse
like a
into the
device,
future
not
of connected
magic.
tech.
You plan usage, heavy features drain more. Passive use stretches time. That awareness changes how you interact with them. Kids learn this fast. Adults appreciate the predictability. Here's a moment that really stuck with me. I'm following directions, listening to audio prompts, occasionally checking translations, and I realize I haven't touched my phone in a while. Not because I forced myself not to, but because I didn't need to. And that's the real competition. Here, not features versus features, it's habit versus habit. Does this reduce friction? Does it lower cognitive load? Sometimes yes. Always? No. And that leads us directly into the comparison everyone waits for. Is this a real Meta Ray-Ban competitor? In some ways, absolutely. In others, not at all. Meta Ray-Ban focuses on discrete capture and audio, leaning heavily on phone integration. RayNeo X2 focuses on visible information, independence, and augmented reality. One tries to disappear. The other tries to assist. Neither approach is wrong. They serve different personalities, but here's the twist. What if you're not choosing between them based on specs, but based on how you move through the world? That question becomes unavoidable once you've lived with RayNeo X2 for a while. And I haven't even told you about the moment where everything almost fell apart for me. Until it didn't, because the next part of this experience isn't about what the glasses can do. It's about what happens when you rely on them at the wrong time or the right one. And that's exactly where the real verdict starts to form. Stay with me, because this is where things get unexpectedly human. At this point, I've already crossed the phase where everything feels new, and that's usually when technology reveals its true personality. The honeymoon fades, habits form, and small details start to matter more than flashy features.
This is
I'm
definitely going on my story.
wearing the RayNeo X2 again, not to test them, but simply because they're there. And that's a dangerous moment for any gadget, because if it doesn't earn its place naturally,
So then I told
it gets
him,
left
"That's
behind.
not a squirrel,
So I let a
that's my
normal day
landlord."
happen. I step outside
Wait, he actually believed
without a
you?
plan.
For a second,
No destination typed in, no feature queued up. Just me and the glasses. And here's something subtle that happens. My brain checks for information, not consciously. It's like a reflex. Is there anything I need right now? And when the answer is no, the glasses stay quiet. They don't
The
push.
integration of AI
They don't
into these smart
interrupt.
glasses is changing
That
how we
silence is
interact
actually
with the
one of their
digital world.
strongest traits,
Absolutely, the
even
real-time
though no one
translation feature
advertises
is a game
silence as a
changer.
feature. For a kid, this feels respectful, like a game that waits for your move. For an older adult, it feels polite, like technology that knows when to step back. Then I intentionally overload the moment. I turn on navigation again, let notifications come through, play audio prompts, and suddenly I'm curious, can this become too much? And the answer is yes, if you let it. The RayNeo X2 gives you control, but it doesn't babysit you. If you stack features on top of each other, you will feel it. Your attention gets split. This isn't a flaw, it's a mirror. The glasses reflect how you choose to use them. They reward intention and punish chaos.
And then she completely
And
missed
that
the
realization
turn. It was
hits harder than
hilarious.
any spec sheet ever could.
Did she really?
I stop walking and think about
You
who
always
these
have the
glasses
best
are really
stories.
for. Not in theory, but in practice. They are not for someone who wants technology to disappear completely. And they are not for someone who wants constant stimulation either. They sit in the middle. A strange middle ground where information exists, but only if you invite it, and that balance feels fragile. One bad design decision could have ruined it, but here it mostly holds. Now I test something emotional instead of technical. I meet someone. A real conversation. No demo, no setup, just talking. The translation feature stays off at first. I don't need it. Then we switch languages deliberately. I turn it on. Subtitles appear. And suddenly the glasses feel less like hardware and more like a bridge. But the bridge is narrow. It works when both people speak clearly. It struggles when voices overlap or slang takes over. And that limitation matters because it reminds you that this is assistance, not replacement. You still need patience. You still need human effort. The glasses don't steal the moment, they support it. Now let's talk about fatigue, because long-term wear tells a different story than first impressions. After extended use, the pressure becomes noticeable again. Not painful, just present. You adjust the frames. You take a short break. And this is where expectations need to be realistic. These are not lightweight fashion glasses pretending to be smart. These are computers on your face, and computers have weight. Accepting that makes the experience better. Fighting it makes you resent them. I remember a moment later that day when I took them off and the world felt empty, not quieter, just less annotated. And that's when it hit me. The RayNeo X2 doesn't try to replace reality, it layers on top of it. And when you remove the layer, you notice the absence, not because you depended on it, but because it genuinely helped in small, honest ways. Finding places, understanding people, remembering things without stopping your life to tap a screen.
Right now.
Battery anxiety creeps in again here. You start to think, should I use this now or save it for later? And that thought alone tells you, Something important, these glasses make you more intentional. Phones invite endless use. These glasses invite selective use. And that difference shapes behavior. A child might learn restraint faster. An adult might rediscover focus. Now the comparison. With Meta Ray-Ban returns, but in a more mature way. Meta Ray-Ban feels like an extension of your phone. RayNeo X2 feels like an extension of your awareness. One captures moments, the other contextualizes them. And depending on your lifestyle, one will quietly win your loyalty. There's no clear champion, only alignment. I test the camera again, this time not for novelty, but for necessity. I'm carrying something.
Good morning.
My hands are full.
I'm reviewing the report
A
now.
moment happens,
The
I
projections
capture
look
it.
solid,
No
and we
disruption,
should move
no
forward
pause.
with the proposal
And
as
that's when the
discussed.
camera earns its keep. Not when it looks impressive, but when it stays out of the way. The quality remains consistent with before. Functional, honest, no surprises. And consistency builds trust. As the day winds down, I realize something unexpected. I haven't been explaining the glasses to myself anymore. I'm just using them. That's the milestone every wearable has to reach. When the mental narration stops. When curiosity gives way to routine. And that's exactly when a final question surfaces, quietly but firmly. Would I choose these over something simpler? The answer isn't immediate, and that's good. If it were obvious, it wouldn't be an interesting product. The RayNeo X2 sits in a category that still feels young, still evolving, but already useful. And usefulness is dangerous, because once you taste it, you notice its absence everywhere else. I take the glasses off for the night and place them down. And I don't feel relief, I feel pause. Like closing a book mid-chapter. There's one more thing I need to decide, and it has nothing to do with features, specs, or comparisons. It has to do with trust. Not whether I trust the technology, but whether I trust myself to use it well. And that decision, that's where the final verdict lives. The next morning, before I even reach for my phone, my eyes drift toward the RayNeo X2 sitting quietly where I left it the night before. It's not glowing, it's not buzzing. It's not demanding anything from me, it's just
With
there.
the X2s, we can
And
overlay
somehow,
the Q3 projections
that
right
silence
here.
speaks louder
That
than any
integration
benchmark
is
chart or
much
spec
smoother
comparison
than
ever
I
could.
anticipated.
Because habits don't lie. If a piece of technology earns your curiosity the next day without reminders, without notifications, without guilt, it's already crossed an invisible line. It has become part of your thinking. I pick them up, feel the familiar weight in my hand, and put them on again. Not because I need to test them. Not because I'm filming. Not because I owe them more evaluation time. I put them on because I want to feel how the day unfolds with them once more. That distinction matters. This time, I'm not analyzing frame design or feature execution. I'm not mentally checking boxes. I'm just observing myself, the way I move, the way I react, the way my attention shifts or doesn't. I step outside, and almost immediately something subtle but powerful clicks into place. My hands are free. Not free in the dramatic sense, but naturally free. My phone stays in my pocket without effort. My head is up, not tilted downward. And my attention feels wider instead of narrower. That's the best way I can describe it. Wider. The glasses aren't pulling me inward into a glowing rectangle. They're gently expanding what I notice in front of me. Buildings, street signs, people passing by. Small details that usually blur when your focus is locked onto a screen. That balance is incredibly hard to strike. Most technology demands focus. It competes for it. It trains you to stare, scroll, tap, and react. These glasses do something different. They offer support without insisting on attention. And that difference becomes clearer the longer you live with them. It's not something you appreciate in the first 5 minutes. It reveals itself slowly through behavior, not excitement. As I walk, I think about trust again. Because wearables don't just live on your body, they live in your habits. You don't use them the way you use a phone. You allow them into the flow of your day. And the RayNeo X2 asks for a specific kind of trust. Not the loud kind, that promises to do everything for you. But the quiet kind that says, information will be there when you need it. Not before,
Please confirm
not
the meeting
constantly,
with the stakeholders
not
by
screaming for
tapping
relevance
twice.
every second. For younger users, that trust often feels natural. Kids adapt fast. They accept new rules quickly. To them, The idea that information appears when needed and disappears when not makes
glasses are a
sense.
game changer.
It feels
The display is
intuitive,
so
almost like a
clear.
game
They look
mechanic.
amazing on you. Can
For
you
older
actually see my
users,
text
that
popping up
trust
right
can
now?
take longer to form.
Welcome, looking for
Years of
something
phones have
special.
trained us to check,
These are handmade
refresh,
right here. Very
verify.
popular.
Letting go of that habit requires patience. But once that trust settles in, it's surprisingly comforting. Like sitting next to someone who speaks only when it matters. As the day moves forward, I start reflecting on specific moments. Not dramatic ones, just real ones. Navigation that didn't distract me or pull my eyes away from the street. Translation that reduced hesitation instead of replacing conversation. Notifications that appeared gently and left just as easily, without hijacking my attention or breaking my train of thought. None of these moments felt revolutionary on their own. No fireworks, no future just arrived announcement. But together, they formed something more meaningful, a pattern, a rhythm. And rhythm is what makes technology livable. When tech fits into rhythm, it stops feeling like a tool and starts feeling like an extension. Not an extension of your personality or identity, but of your awareness. And that's a rare thing. Most gadgets want to be the main event. These glasses are content being part of the background until you need them to step forward. Eventually, the question everyone is waiting for arrives naturally, without forcing it. The verdict. Is the RayNeo X2 a real Meta Ray-Ban competitor? The honest answer is this. They're not trying to win the same race. And that realization removes a lot of unnecessary comparison. Meta Ray-Ban focuses on blending into your lifestyle by hiding technology inside familiar fashion. The goal there is discretion, minimal visual presence. Capture moments without drawing attention. RayNeo X2 takes a different approach. It focuses on enhancing your awareness by putting information where your eyes already are. The goal here is assistance, not invisibility. One approach centers on subtle capture. The other centers on visible support. And depending on who you are, your routines, your comfort level, your expectations, one of these philosophies will resonate more deeply than the other. There's no universal winner here, just alignment. If you value AR displays, standalone, operation, and contextual information layered gently into your day, RayNeo X2 feels like a tool built with intention. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. If you value minimalism, aesthetics, and social invisibility, if you want technology to disappear entirely into your outfit, Meta Ray-Ban makes more sense.
The data visualization
This isn't about
really
specs beating
streamlines the
specs.
process.
Yes,
It's about
having the
mindset
real-time
matching
analytics
mindset.
right here
And
is
that's where
incredibly
honesty matters
efficient
most.
for the quarterly review.
The RayNeo X2 doesn't try to convince you it's perfect. It doesn't hide its limits. Weight is real. You feel it after long sessions. Battery requires awareness and planning. Social perception matters more because the design signals technology rather than fashion. Translation needs clarity. To work well, these aren't flaws hidden behind marketing language. They're realities you experience naturally. And because the glasses don't pretend otherwise, the good moments feel earned instead of staged. There's a kind of respect in that transparency.
Checklist complete.
The device
All
doesn't
systems
overpromise,
nominal.
so it doesn't underdeliver.
Generating schematics
It shows you
for
exactly
module
where
3.
it shines and where it steps back. And that honesty builds a quiet kind of confidence over time. As the day winds down, I take the glasses off one final time and set them aside. And something interesting happens. I don't feel relief. I don't feel like I'm escaping technology. Instead, I feel like I'm pausing a conversation. Like closing a book mid-chapter rather than finishing it. That feeling tells me everything I need to know about the experience. I don't feel like I tested a gadget. I feel like I spent time with a system one that gently challenged how I interact with information. Not faster, not louder, not more aggressively, just smarter. And in a world obsessed with more notifications, more content, more stimulation, that restraint stands out. So if you're asking whether the RayNeo X2 is worth considering as a Meta Ray-Ban alternative, the real question becomes simpler than specs or brand names. Do you want technology that hides or technology that helps? Do you want something that disappears into your style or something that quietly supports how you move through the world? Because once you answer that honestly, the right choice becomes obvious. And if this kind of real-world testing, grounded evaluation, and no-hype tech, storytelling matters to you, you already know what to do next. I'll see you in the next one.